The first time Lily asked why her father had room for a new baby, but not for her and Noah, Emily Parker was kneeling beside a space heater that clicked like it was praying for retirement. Outside, January pressed its face against the one thin window of their rented room in Dayton, Ohio, turning the glass white at the edges and the parking lot beyond it into a sheet of dirty ice. Inside, the room was 12 feet wide, maybe 15 if Emily counted the narrow strip beside the sink where she kept a 2-burner hot plate, 3 chipped mugs, and a jar of peanut butter she had been stretching for 9 days. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor with his spelling worksheet balanced on a cardboard box. Lily was beside him in pink socks with a hole at the heel, holding a crayon so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. The twins were 7, old enough to notice empty chairs, late checks, and the way their mother smiled hardest when there was almost nothing left to smile about. Emily folded a blanket over the back of the chair where she slept most nights and pretended she had not heard the question at first. Not because she did not have an answer, but because every answer felt like handing a child a stone and asking her to call it bread. "Dad has a different house now," Emily said gently, turning the heater 1 notch higher even though she knew it would make the electric bill worse. "That doesn't mean he doesn't think about you." Noah looked up then, his brown hair falling into his eyes, the same serious eyes Ryan Whitmore had once called too old for a kid before he stopped noticing them at all. "Does he think about us on Saturdays?" Noah asked. "Because Saturdays are when he takes them to the zoo." Emily's hand froze on the blanket. Them. Madison's little boy, the baby Madison was carrying, the shining new family Ryan posted online as if fatherhood were a picture frame and not a promise. Emily had seen the photos that morning during her 10-minute break at the laundromat. Ryan in a navy coat, Madison laughing under a red scarf, her son on Ryan's shoulders in front of the penguin exhibit. The caption had said, "Building memories with my beautiful family." Emily had stared at those words until the break room vending machine hummed louder than her thoughts. Beautiful family. As if Noah and Lily were an old receipt he had left in a glove compartment. "Maybe we can go to the zoo when it gets warmer," Emily said. Lily lowered her crayon. "With Dad." The room seemed to shrink around that one small hope. The bed pressed closer to the wall. The boxes leaned in. The pipes knocked behind the plaster like something trapped and tired. Emily crossed the room and sat on the floor between them, ignoring the ache in her knees from 8 hours on her feet sorting sheets and towels for people whose houses probably had dining rooms bigger than this room. She pulled both children close, one under each arm, breathing in the clean soap smell of their hair because she washed their clothes in the sink every other night, even when her own sweater could wait. "With me," she said softly, "and I promise I'll make it fun." Noah did not argue. That was what hurt most. He only nodded with the careful politeness of a child who had learned not to ask for too much. Lily leaned into Emily's side and whispered, "Our room is little." Emily looked around at the fold-out bed, the dented dresser, the school papers taped to the wall because there was no refrigerator big enough for their pride. She looked at the curtain she had sewn from an old bedsheet, at the shoes lined beneath the sink, at the tiny plastic Christmas tree still standing in the corner, because none of them had been ready to put away the lights. "It is," Emily said, pressing a kiss to Lily's hair. "But little things can still hold a lot." That night, after the twins fell asleep side by side on the bed, their feet tucked beneath the same quilt, Emily sat in the chair by the window with her coat over her lap and her phone in her hand. Ryan had not answered her last 3 messages about the late child support. He had not asked about Noah's cough or Lily's missing front tooth. But his social media page glowed with polished happiness, a warm house, a smiling wife, a nursery painted soft green for the baby who would never have to wonder whether there was space for them. Emily turned the phone face down and looked at her children. In that one room, with frost on the window and unpaid bills in a drawer, she made the same promise she made every night without saying it out loud. They would not feel unwanted if she had to love them loudly enough for 2 parents. They would not learn their worth from the man who left. And somehow, even if the world gave them only one small room, she would turn it into a home. By morning, the room had become ordinary again, because poverty had a cruel little talent for making even heartbreak follow a schedule. The alarm on Emily's phone buzzed at 5:30, soft enough not to wake the twins, but sharp enough to pull her out of the thin sleep she had managed in the chair. Her neck ached. Her right foot had gone numb. The blanket had slipped from her lap sometime before dawn, and the cold had climbed under her sweater like a hand. For a few seconds, she sat perfectly still and listened to the small sounds that proved the world had not ended while she slept. Noah breathing through his stuffy nose, Lily murmuring something into her pillow, the radiator knocking behind the wall, a truck backing up somewhere in the parking lot with a tired electronic beep. Emily rose carefully, folding her coat over the chair to make it look intentional, as if sleeping there had been a choice and not the quiet mathematics of a mother who needed her children to have the bed. The room looked smaller in daylight. The sink was full of 2 bowls and 1 spoon. The tiny trash can was pressed beneath the hot plate. Their clothes were stacked in plastic bins labeled with masking tape because a dresser with enough drawers had become one of those adult luxuries nobody warned you about, like dental work or tires that did not leak air. Above the bed, the twins' school papers covered the wall in uneven rows. Noah's spelling test with a gold star. Lily's drawing of 3 stick figures standing in front of a square yellow house. Emily had noticed, the night before, that Lily had added a blue door to the house instead of a red one, probably because the red crayon had worn down to a stump. She put water on to boil and counted slices of bread. 3 left. She placed 2 in the toaster and told herself she would eat later at the laundromat, where there were crackers in her locker if nobody had taken them. She packed the twins' lunches with the care of someone arranging flowers for a funeral. Peanut butter folded between bread, apple slices dusted with cinnamon so they would feel special, 2 small notes written on napkins because love was the one thing she could still afford in excess. For Noah, you are braver than you think. For Lily, your smile makes every room bigger. When the twins woke, Emily became sunlight on command. She warmed their socks near the heater, brushed Lily's hair into 2 uneven braids, and helped Noah find his library book under the folded laundry. She called the room their little headquarters, their fort, their winter cabin, anything but what it was. A rented rectangle with 1 window, 1 lock, and 1 mother trying to stretch herself across every missing piece. "Can I bring my house picture to school?" Lily asked, holding the paper carefully by the corners. Emily glanced at the drawing. The yellow house. The blue door. 3 people. No father. "Absolutely," she said. "It is beautiful." Lily smiled, and for 1 clean second, the room really did feel bigger. Then Emily's phone lit up on the counter. A notification from Ryan's page appeared before she could turn it over. Madison had tagged him in a photo from their kitchen, all white cabinets and morning light, Ryan standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders while her son held a bowl of pancake batter. The caption read, "Sundays are for family traditions," even though it was Monday, because people like Ryan never let truth get in the way of a polished sentence. Noah saw the glow of the screen before Emily could hide it. He did not say anything. He only looked down at his toast and tore it into small, careful pieces. That silence followed Emily all the way to the bus stop. The air was 16 degrees, cold enough to sting their cheeks, and turned every breath visible. Emily stood between the twins and the wind, holding their backpacks while they hopped from foot to foot on the frozen curb. When the school bus finally sighed to a stop in front of them, Lily hugged Emily's waist, and Noah gave her the quick, embarrassed squeeze he still pretended he was too old for. "Have a good day," Emily said. "Both of you." Noah climbed the steps, then turned back. "Mom." "Yes, baby." He hesitated, his small face serious beneath his knit hat. "When we get a real house, can you have a bed too?" The question landed softly, which somehow made it hurt more. Emily smiled because mothers learn to do impossible things with their faces. "I think that sounds like a very good plan." The bus doors closed. Emily stood on the curb until it disappeared around the corner, then walked back to the 1-room apartment to wash the bowls, put on her laundromat shirt, and begin another day of pretending that almost enough was enough. Ryan Whitmore's kitchen looked like something from a real estate magazine. All white cabinets, brass handles, and sunlight spilling across marble counters that never seemed to hold a dirty dish for more than a minute. The house sat in a quiet subdivision outside Centerville, where the lawns were trimmed even in winter, and every front porch had a wreath that looked professionally arranged. It was the kind of place Ryan had once promised Emily they would have when the twins were babies, and he was still speaking in future tense. Back when he said things like our yard, our savings, our children, as if love were a contract he intended to honor. Now he stood in that bright kitchen wearing a pale blue dress shirt, and a watch Emily remembered seeing in a jewelry store window years ago, the kind of watch that cost more than 3 months of her rent. Madison moved beside him, one hand resting lightly on the curve of her stomach while her son, Carter, stirred pancake batter at the island with flour on his nose and a grin wide enough to make Ryan laugh. It was an easy laugh, polished and warm, the laugh of a man who had learned how to perform tenderness when there was a camera nearby. "Hold still," Madison said, lifting her phone. "This is perfect." Ryan leaned closer, placing one hand on her shoulder and the other on Carter's back. He knew exactly how the picture would look. Handsome husband, glowing wife, happy child, clean kitchen, evidence of a life so complete it could survive public inspection. He smiled before she even counted to 3. After Madison posted it, his phone began to light up with comments from friends, clients, people from church, and a few relatives who had never once asked whether Noah and Lily needed winter coats. "Beautiful family. You are such a good dad. This is what matters." Ryan read the words while sipping coffee from a mug that said "World's Best Bonus Dad," and something small and unpleasant moved in the back of his mind. It was not guilt exactly. Guilt required a person to sit still long enough to tell the truth. Ryan preferred irritation. Irritation was easier. It gave him someone to blame. Emily should not have made things so difficult. Emily should have understood that after the divorce, everyone had to adjust. Emily should have gotten a better job, found a better apartment, stopped acting as if raising children required his constant participation. He paid when he could. He visited when his schedule allowed. He loved the twins in theory, and theory had always been Ryan's favorite place to keep inconvenient responsibilities. His phone buzzed again, but this time it was not praise. It was a message from Emily, short and careful, the way her messages had become after years of learning that too many words gave him too many places to attack. "The support payment is 8 weeks late. Noah needs cough medicine, and Lily's school shoes are too small. Please let me know when you can send something." Ryan stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. Across the island, Carter laughed as Madison wiped flour from his cheek. The baby registry was open on Madison's laptop, a neat list of cribs, blankets, a stroller with wheels that looked engineered for mountain terrain despite the fact that nobody in their neighborhood walked farther than the mailbox. Ryan had already ordered the crib. He had already paid the deposit for maternity photos. He had already booked a weekend at an indoor water park for Carter's birthday because Madison said the boy needed memories before the baby came. There was always money for the life in front of him. The life behind him, the one in a one-room apartment with frost on the window, had become a problem he preferred to call complicated. Madison glanced up. "Everything okay?" Ryan turned the phone face down. "Just Emily." Madison's expression shifted with the cautious sympathy of someone who only knew the version she had been given. "Is she upset again?" Ryan gave a tired little smile, the one that made him look patient and wronged. "She is always upset about something. I do what I can, but she makes it hard. She never really moved on." Madison nodded slowly, though her eyes stayed on him a second longer than usual. Ryan did not notice. He was already reaching for Carter's plate, already slipping back into the warmth of the role he had chosen. In that kitchen, with the smell of pancakes and expensive coffee filling the air, he looked like a devoted father. Miles away, Emily was tying Lily's too tight shoes with fingers cracked from detergent, preparing to walk to a bus stop in 16-degree weather. The difference between Ryan's two families was not love. It was convenience. One family made him look generous. The other reminded him what generosity would actually cost. The promise Ryan made came on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 days after Emily sent the message about the late support payment and received nothing but silence in return. She was folding warm towels at the laundromat, the kind from a customer who used lavender detergent so expensive it made the whole back room smell like someone else's piece, when her phone buzzed beside the roll of quarters. For one foolish second, her heart lifted. Human hope was embarrassing that way, always crawling back to doors that had already been locked from the other side. Ryan's name glowed on the screen. "I can come Friday for the school thing." "What time?" Emily stared at the message until the words blurred slightly. Friday was the twins' winter music night, a modest little program in the elementary school cafeteria with paper snowflakes taped to the walls and parents sitting in folding chairs with coats across their laps. Noah had been practicing a song for 2 weeks, humming it under his breath while tying his shoes, while brushing his teeth, while pretending not to care whether anyone came to watch. Lily had asked every morning if Daddy knew what time it started. Emily had answered carefully, the way people handle glass. She wiped her hands on her apron and typed back, 6:30. They would love to see you. He responded almost immediately. I will be there. No apology. No mention of the money. No question about their shoes, their cough medicine, or whether Lily still slept with the stuffed rabbit he had bought her before he left. Just the clean confidence of a man tossing a coin into a fountain and calling it devotion. Still, Emily let herself believe him because the twins deserved at least one evening where belief did not feel dangerous. On Friday, she worked through lunch so she could leave the laundromat 40 minutes early, then walk the half-mile home against a wind sharp enough to make her eyes water. The room was dim when she unlocked the door, the winter light already thinning behind the curtains. She moved fast, heating canned tomato soup on the hot plate, pressing Noah's shirt beneath a towel with the bottom of a warm pan because they did not own an iron, sewing one loose button on Lily's cardigan with thread that did not quite match. The children were electric with anticipation. Lily asked if she should wear her hair with the blue clips, because Ryan once said blue made her look like a movie star. Noah pretended to read, but he kept glancing at the phone on the counter every few minutes, his face arranged into an expression too casual for a 7-year-old boy. He said he is coming, Emily reminded them, though she was not sure whether she was comforting them or herself. At 6:15, they stood at the bus stop under a sky the color of wet cement. Lily held Emily's hand, bouncing on her toes to keep warm. Noah carried the folded program his teacher had sent home, carefully tucked inside a plastic grocery bag so the snow flurries would not spot the paper. They reached the school cafeteria just as families began filling the rows of chairs. The room smelled of floor wax, coffee from a large metal urn, and the faint sweetness of sugar cookies arranged on paper plates. Near the back, Emily chose 3 seats near the middle and saved the 4th with her coat. Lily placed both hands on the empty chair and whispered, "This one is for Dad." Emily smiled and nodded. 6:30 came, then 6:40, then 6:50. The children's class lined up near the stage, and Noah's eyes kept searching the doorway. At 7:05, Emily's phone buzzed in her purse. Something came up. Tell them I am sorry. 4 words of excuse. 5 if she counted the sorry, which she did not. Before she could turn the screen away, Noah saw her face. Children noticed the truth before adults finished disguising it. He did not ask what happened. He just looked at the empty chair, then down at the program in his hands. Lily followed his gaze and understood enough to stop smiling. Across town, Ryan was not in traffic, not at an emergency, not trapped by some unavoidable crisis. A photo appeared online 20 minutes later, posted by Madison from a warmly lit restaurant in downtown Dayton. Ryan sat beside Carter, laughing over a plate of pasta, Madison's hand resting near a small gift bag on the table. "Family dinner before our big weekend," the caption read. Emily saw it while standing at the back of the cafeteria, clapping until her palms stung as Noah sang, without looking up, and Lily mouthed the words with trembling concentration. She put the phone away and clapped louder. If Ryan would not be there to witness them, then she would witness them enough for the whole room. But when the song ended and the children returned to their seats, Noah quietly folded the program in half, then in half again, until his father's empty chair was covered by Emily's coat. After the music night, Emily stopped waiting for Ryan to become the kind of father the twins had invented in their minds. Waiting had begun to feel like leaving a porch light on for someone who had moved to another state and changed his name. The next morning came gray and hard, with a thin crust of ice over the parking lot and a wind that pushed against the window, as if it wanted to come inside and count their money too. Emily woke before the alarm, not because she had rested, but because worry had its own schedule. She sat up in the chair, careful not to wake Noah and Lily, and looked at the folded program on the little table beside the hot plate. Noah had brought it home in his backpack, creased into a small square, his name printed on the front in blue marker. Lily had tried to smooth it out before bed, pressing it under her favorite picture book, as if paper could forget being crushed if someone loved it gently enough. Emily touched the program with 2 fingers, then got dressed in the dark. Her laundromat shirt smelled faintly of bleach no matter how many times she washed it. Her jeans were thinning at the knees. Her hands had small cracks along the knuckles from detergent, winter air, and the kind of work nobody notices unless it is not done. At 6:15, she left a note for the twins beside their cereal bowls because Mrs. Donnelly from downstairs would come up at 7 to sit with them until the school bus arrived. The note said, "Good morning, my loves. Eat first. Choose second. No arguing over the blue cup. I love you bigger than Ohio." She signed it with 3 hearts because Lily counted them every time. The laundromat opened at 7, and by 8:30 Emily was already moving between machines, lifting wet blankets into dryers, wiping lint traps, sorting orders into plastic bags with names written in black marker. The place was warm and damp, filled with the constant turning of other people's lives. Baby clothes, work shirts, hotel sheets, uniforms from a diner 2 streets over. Emily liked the rhythm when she could disappear into it. Fold, stack, label, smile. Fold, stack, label, survive. Her manager, Denise, a broad-shouldered woman with silver hair and reading glasses hanging from a chain, watched her from behind the counter. Denise had the kind of eyes that did not pry but missed nothing. "You eat breakfast?" she asked. Emily was matching socks from a mesh bag. "I had coffee." "That is not breakfast. That is a warning sign in a paper cup." Emily managed a small laugh. "I am fine." Denise slid a granola bar across the counter without making a ceremony of it. That was why Emily liked her. Pity made noise. Kindness knew when to be quiet. By 3, Emily's feet throbbed. By 4, she had answered 2 messages from Lily's teacher, one about a permission slip and one about a family appreciation assignment the class would begin next week. Teeth were brushed and backpacks were checked. Emily tucked them into bed and took her place in the chair. She waited until their breathing softened before letting her own face fall. The room was quiet except for the heater and the distant sound of a car door closing outside. On the wall, Lily's yellow house drawing curled slightly at the corners. Emily looked at the 3 figures in front of the blue door and whispered into the dark, "I am trying." It was not a complaint. It was a promise with tired edges. The family appreciation assignment arrived on a Monday in a blue folder that had been softened at the corners by too many bus rides and too many small hands. Emily found it after dinner, tucked between Noah's math worksheet and Lily's library notice, while the twins sat on the bed building a city out of cereal boxes and paper cups. The room smelled faintly of tomato soup, dish soap, and the peppermint lotion Mrs. Donnelly had given Emily for her cracked hands. Outside, the parking lot lights flickered against the window, turning the glass into a dark mirror where Emily could see herself standing at the sink, shoulders bent, hair coming loose from its clip, looking older than 34 in a way no birthday had earned. She opened the folder and read the printed note from Mrs. Alvarez, the twins' 2nd grade teacher. "Next Thursday evening, our class will host Family Appreciation Night. Students will share a short writing piece about someone who makes them feel safe, loved, and supported. Families are welcome." Emily read the sentence twice, and something inside her tightened, not with fear exactly, but with recognition. Safe, loved, supported. Such simple words. Such expensive things when a family had been split like a bill nobody wanted to pay. "What is it?" Noah asked, looking up from the cereal box City Hall he had been constructing with careful tape hinges. Emily folded the paper and smiled. "Your class is having a special night next week." Lily crawled across the quilt immediately, her braids slipping over one shoulder. "Is it like music night?" The question was innocent, but Noah went still beside her. The memory of Ryan's empty chair had not left the room. It had become one more object they all stepped around. Emily sat on the edge of the bed. "It is different. You get to write about someone who helps you feel safe." Lily's face brightened. "Can I draw too?" "I am sure Mrs. Alvarez will let you draw." Noah picked at a strip of tape on the cereal box. "Do dads come?" Emily chose her words the way she chose groceries at the discount store, slowly, carefully, knowing there would not be room for waste. "Sometimes dads come. Sometimes moms come. Sometimes grandparents, aunts, neighbors, whoever is important." Lily looked toward the wall, where her yellow house picture curled at the corners. "Can Mrs. Donnelly come?" Emily's throat softened. "I think she would love that." The next morning, Mrs. Alvarez introduced the assignment in class with a stack of lined paper and a box of sharpened pencils. Noah sat at his desk near the window, watching bare branches move against the pale sky. Around him, children began whispering about fathers who coached soccer, mothers who made pancakes shaped like hearts, grandmothers who kept candy in their purses. A boy named Mason announced that his dad was a firefighter and once carried a puppy out of a flooded basement. A girl named Harper said her mom worked at a hospital and could fix anything with a bandage and a kiss. Noah looked down at his blank page. Someone who makes me feel safe. His pencil hovered. He thought about Ryan's house, though he had only been there twice since the divorce, both times for a few hours that felt like visiting a museum where he was not supposed to touch anything. He remembered Carter showing him a room full of toys and saying, "This is where the baby's room is going to be." He remembered Ryan telling him to be careful with the couch because Madison liked to keep things nice. Nice. The word felt cold. Then Noah thought about the one-room apartment. He thought about Emily warming socks near the heater, counting change into little piles, checking his homework with tired eyes that still found every misspelled word. He thought about the way she stood between him and the wind at the bus stop. He thought about her sleeping in the chair and pretending chairs were comfortable. Slowly, he wrote, "My mom makes me feel safe because she stays." Across the room, Lily was already drawing. She drew the small room first, the bed too big, the window too small, the hot plate on the counter like a tiny stove in a dollhouse. Then she drew Emily in the middle with long arms reaching both twins at once. Mrs. Alvarez paused behind her desk longer than she meant to. "Tell me about your picture, Lily," she said softly. Lily kept coloring Emily's sweater purple because purple was the prettiest crayon left. "That is Mommy. She makes our little room not scary." Mrs. Alvarez looked at Noah's paper, then at Lily's drawing, and the practiced brightness teachers were in front of children flickered for just a second. She had seen many kinds of families in 22 years of teaching. Loud ones, quiet ones, broken ones, rebuilt ones. But there was something about the careful way these twins loved their mother that told her they had been watching too much, understanding too early. That afternoon, she placed both papers in a separate folder on her desk. Not because she wanted to interfere. Not yet. But because sometimes the truth arrived first in a child's handwriting, and adults had a duty not to look away. By the time Family Appreciation Night arrived, Emily had learned not to dress Hope too brightly. She still helped Lily choose the blue clips, still brushed Noah's hair until it lay flat for almost 30 seconds, still packed 2 folded napkins in her purse because school cafeterias always seemed to run out at exactly the wrong moment. But she did not save a chair in her heart for Ryan this time. She sent him one reminder that morning, plain and polite, because the twins had asked her to. "The event begins at 6:30. Noah and Lily would be happy if you came." Ryan replied at noon with a sentence that sounded generous if a person did not know how little it cost him to type it. "I will try to make it." Emily read it during her lunch break behind the laundromat, standing beside a humming dryer with a vending machine sandwich in her hand. "I will try." It was the language of men who wanted credit for standing near responsibility without actually touching it. Still, she told the twins only that he knew the time. That evening, the elementary school glowed against the cold like a small ship in dark water. Cars lined the curb. Parents hurried children through the front doors, carrying poster boards, cookies, diaper bags, flowers for teachers, and the ordinary evidence of families who had managed to arrive together. Emily walked in holding Lily's hand while Noah stayed close to her other side, his folder pressed against his chest. Mrs. Donnelly came too, bundled in a purple coat and smelling faintly of peppermint gum, declaring that any child brave enough to read in front of a cafeteria deserved an audience with good posture. Lily beamed at that. Noah pretended not to, but his ears turned pink. Inside, the cafeteria had been transformed with paper hearts, construction paper handprints, and a banner that read Family Appreciation Night in uneven rainbow letters. Folding chairs faced a small riser near the lunch line. On one wall, the students' drawings had been taped in rows. Emily found Lily's immediately. The one-room apartment was there in crayon, smaller than it felt in real life and somehow kinder. Emily stood in the middle with arms too long, holding both twins, a purple sweater bright as a flag. Beneath it, Mrs. Alvarez had written Lily's sentence in careful black marker. "My mom makes our little room not scary." Emily swallowed hard and looked away before the children could see her eyes shine. At 6:28, Ryan walked in. Not alone. Madison came beside him in a cream coat, one hand resting on her stomach, her blonde hair tucked neatly behind one ear. Carter trailed after them with a tablet in both hands, bored already. Ryan wore a charcoal overcoat and the practiced smile of a man arriving late enough to be noticed, but not late enough to be blamed. Noah saw him first. His whole face opened, then restrained itself, as if joy had learned caution. Lily whispered, "Dad came." Emily turned, and for a moment all the noise in the cafeteria thinned into the scrape of chair legs and the distant buzz of fluorescent lights. Ryan gave her a small nod, the kind he might offer a former coworker at a grocery store. "Hey," he said. "We made it." "We." The word landed awkwardly between them. Madison smiled at Emily with polite uncertainty. She was pretty in a careful suburban way, but there was something tired around her eyes that made her seem less like a villain and more like a woman reading the first page of a book she had been told was about someone else. "It is nice to see you," Madison said. Emily nodded. "You too." Lily rushed forward and hugged Ryan around the waist. He patted her back with one hand while glancing around the room, aware of witnesses. Noah approached more slowly. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, buddy," Ryan said, reaching down to ruffle his hair. Noah stepped back almost immediately, not rudely, just enough to protect the careful work Emily had done with the brush. Ryan laughed as if it were charming. "Still serious, huh?" Madison watched the twins, then Emily, then the wall of drawings. Her gaze stopped on Lily's picture. The purple sweater, the tiny room, the sentence underneath. Something quiet shifted in her face. Ryan did not notice. He was scanning the room for seats, for familiar parents, for anyone who might confirm the image he preferred. Mrs. Donnelly, however, noticed everything. She leaned toward Emily and murmured, "Well, at least he found the building. Civilization marches on." Emily nearly laughed, which would have been inconvenient because crying was already too close. They sat together in a row that felt both crowded and painfully divided. Emily, Noah, Lily, Mrs. Donnelly, Ryan, Madison, and Carter at the end with his tablet dimmed under Madison's warning glance. Second, he looked smaller than 7, a thin boy in a button-down shirt with one cuff slightly frayed, holding a folder as if it were something fragile and alive. Emily wanted to reach for him, to smooth his hair again, to tell him he did not have to read anything that made his hands tremble. But Mrs. Alvarez smiled at him from the front with the steady warmth of a woman who understood that children sometimes carried truths adults had worked very hard to misplace. Noah walked to the little riser near the lunch line. The microphone stand was too tall, so Mrs. Alvarez lowered it for him, the metal sliding down with a soft click. Around the cafeteria, parents settled into silence. Someone's baby made a sleepy sound near the back. Carter's tablet dimmed completely under Madison's hand. Ryan leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression, one ankle resting over the other, as though he were attending a harmless school event and not standing at the edge of a mirror he had avoided for years. Noah unfolded his paper. Emily saw the creases in it, saw where he had erased and rewritten words until the page looked tired. He swallowed once, then began. "The person who makes me feel safe is my mom." His voice was quiet at first, but the microphone caught it and carried it across the room, clear enough for every folding chair, every coffee cup, every carefully arranged family to hear. "My mom works at a laundromat. She folds blankets and shirts and towels. At night she cleans offices. Sometimes she comes home when me and my sister are almost asleep, but she still asks about our day." Emily lowered her eyes to her lap. She could feel Mrs. Donnelly beside her go very still. Lily pressed her shoulder against Emily's arm. Noah continued, gaining steadiness with each sentence because he was not accusing anyone. That was what made it impossible to dismiss. He was only telling the truth. "Our apartment is small. It is one room, but Mom says it is our headquarters. She lets me and Lily sleep on the bed, and she sleeps in the chair by the window. She says she likes the chair, but I know she says that because she wants us to have more room." A sound moved through the cafeteria, not a gasp exactly, more like people remembering how to breathe carefully. Madison turned her head toward Ryan. The polished calm on her face had thinned. Ryan did not look at her. He looked at Noah, his jaw tight now, one hand closed around his program. Noah looked down at his paper. "When it is cold, Mom stands in front of us at the bus stop, so the wind hits her first. When there is one cookie, she breaks it into 3 pieces and says she is not hungry. When my dad cannot come, she claps louder." Emily's throat burned. She had not known he noticed the cookie. She had not known he noticed the wind. Parents always hope their children remember the birthday cupcakes and bedtime stories, not the sacrifices hidden badly under jokes and old sweaters. But children are not fooled by love just because it is tired. Noah lifted his eyes then, not to Ryan, not to the crowd, but to Emily. My mom makes me feel safe because she stays. The room went silent in a way Emily had never heard silence before. Not empty silence. Full silence. The kind that holds a truth until no one can pretend they did not hear it. Mrs. Alvarez touched Noah's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you, Noah." He stepped down, cheeks flushed, paper clutched in his hand. Lily was called next, but she did not read from a page of the story he had told himself. He had arrived as a father making an appearance. He was leaving as a man whose children had just explained the difference between being seen and being loved. The ride home from the school felt longer than the walk there, though the distance had not changed. Because she wants sympathy. Madison was silent for a moment. The road hummed beneath the tires. Streetlights passed over her face in pale bands. Do they live in one room? Ryan exhaled sharply. Temporarily. How long is temporarily? I do not know, Madison. She chose that place. She wanted independence. Madison looked out the window at the dark rows of houses slipping past. And the support payments. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. I help when I can. That is not what I asked. The quiet in the car changed shape. Ryan was used to Emily questioning him. He had built entire walls for that. He was not used to Madison doing it. Madison, who had always accepted his version because it had been delivered with charm, frustration, and just enough wounded pride to make him seem like the reasonable one. You are pregnant, he said, softening his voice in the way he did when he wanted a conversation to become about concern instead of accountability. You do not need to stress over Emily's choices. Madison turned back to him slowly. Noah said she works 2 jobs. A lot of people work 2 jobs. He said she sleeps in a chair so they can have the bed. Kids misunderstand things. Lily drew the room, Ryan. He had no answer for that. Not one that would sound clean in the closed space of the car. At home, the house welcomed them with warm air, soft lamps, and the faint scent of the vanilla candle Madison liked to burn in the entryway. Carter woke enough to stumble upstairs, and Ryan said he had emails to check. It was his usual escape, the office with the glass doors, the desk Emily had helped him choose years ago when she still believed shared taste meant shared life. Madison did not follow him. She stood in the kitchen instead, staring at the island where the pancake photo had been taken, the same kitchen that had collected compliments for its brightness. On the counter sat a stack of baby registry cards, a catalog open to a crib, and a small pair of newborn socks Madison had bought that morning because they were impossibly soft. She touched the socks, then thought of Lily's shoes, too tight, mentioned in Emily's message that Ryan had dismissed. The next morning, after Ryan left for work, Madison did something she had never done before. She opened the laptop and searched through the household account. The payments were there for the crib, the stroller, the restaurant, Carter's birthday deposit, Ryan's watch repair, Madison's prenatal package. Then she found the transfers to Emily. Irregular. Partial. Missing for weeks at a time. Not because the money had not existed. Because Ryan had chosen where his generosity looked best. Madison sat back from the screen, one hand resting on her stomach. For the first time, the beautiful house felt less like proof of love and more like evidence. The notice came on a Thursday afternoon, folded once and taped to the outside of the apartment door with a strip of gray tape that had already begun to peel at one corner. Emily saw it before she even reached the top of the stairs. For a moment, she stood frozen on the 3rd-floor landing with a grocery bag cutting into her fingers and Lily's repaired shoes tucked under one arm. The sole still smelling faintly of glue from the discount shoe shop that had charged her $6 and called it a favor. The hallway was narrow and dim, its carpet worn flat in the middle from years of tired people carrying tired things back and forth. Somewhere downstairs, a television laughed too loudly. Somewhere behind another door, a baby cried and then quieted. Ordinary sounds. Normal sounds. The world, being the world, had not paused for the piece of paper waiting to change hers. Emily set the grocery bag down carefully, as if sudden movement might make the notice more real. Her name was printed at the top in black letters. Emily Parker. Below it, the words blurred for one merciful second before her eyes forced them into shape. The building had been sold. All month-to-month tenants were required to vacate within 30 days. 30 days. Not even a season. Not even enough time for Lily's blue door drawing to finish curling at the corners. Emily read the page twice, then a third time, searching for a sentence that might soften the rest, some hidden mercy tucked between legal language and property management signatures. There was none. Just dates, instructions, and a phone number that would lead to someone paid to say there was nothing they could do. She unlocked the door with hands that did not feel like hers. Inside, the room greeted her with its usual smallness. The bed folded halfway because Noah had tried to help that morning. The hot plate wiped clean. The cereal box still standing on the floor near the wall. Lily's yellow house picture taped above the pillow like a prayer made of waxy crayon. Emily closed the door behind her and leaned against it, holding the notice to her chest. 30 days. The words moved through her body with a coldness deeper than January. She had survived late payments, broken promises, empty chairs, tight shoes, and nights when dinner was a performance of abundance staged with soup and toast. But shelter was different. Shelter was the last line. Lose that, and every other struggle became a public thing, a thing people could measure and judge and file into reports. She thought of calling Ryan, then hated herself for thinking it. She called anyway because desperation had never been proud, only practical. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice clipped. I am between meetings. Emily looked at the notice in her hand. The building was sold. We have 30 days to leave. Silence, then a sigh. Not concern, not shock. A sigh, as if she had placed a heavy bag on his clean floor. Emily, I cannot fix every problem that happens over there. Over there. That was what he called the place where his children slept. Emily closed her eyes. I am not asking you to fix every problem. I am asking you to help your children stay housed. I have obligations here too. In the background, she heard the faint sound of Madison's voice and Carter laughing at something. A warm house sound. A sound with rooms. Ryan, Emily said, and her voice did not break, which felt like its own small miracle. Noah and Lily need somewhere to live. Then file whatever you need to file, he said, irritation sharpening him. But do not make me the villain because your lease situation changed. The call ended before she could answer. Emily stood in the room with the phone still against her ear, listening to the dead quiet after his voice disappeared. The twins would be home in less than an hour. She had less than an hour to become calm, less than an hour to fold terror into a shape children could not recognize. She put the notice in the drawer beneath the unpaid bills, then took it out again because hiding a storm did not stop the roof from leaking. At the sink, she splashed cold water on her face and practiced smiling in the small mirror above it. The woman staring back looked pale, exhausted, and impossibly alone. Then the school bus hissed outside. Emily dried her face, opened the door, and met Noah and Lily at the top of the stairs with the kind of smile mothers build out of scraps. Lily ran into her arms first, waving a spelling sticker. Noah followed more slowly, studying her face because he always studied too much. Are you okay, Mom? He asked. Emily hugged them both close, so close Lily squeaked. I am okay, she said. It was not true yet, but as she held them in the doorway of the only home they had, she made herself believe it could become true if she worked hard enough, begged quietly enough, and refused, one more time, to disappear. The courthouse in downtown Dayton did not look like justice from the outside. It looked like concrete, glass, security lines, and tired people clutching folders as if paper could keep their lives from spilling open. Emily arrived at 8:15 on a Tuesday morning with Noah and Lily beside her, both dressed in their best school clothes because Mrs. Donnelly had insisted that dignity should be ironed, even if the iron had to be borrowed from apartment 2B. Emily wore a navy dress she had owned since before the divorce, the seams a little strained at the shoulders, the hem brushed clean with a lint roller Mrs. Donnelly had pressed into her hand like a weapon. In her tote bag were bank statements, pay stubs, rent receipts, messages from Ryan, the eviction notice, and 2 school papers folded inside a plastic sleeve, Noah's essay and Lily's drawing. She had not wanted to bring the children, but the court-appointed mediator had said their presence might be necessary for the custody schedule discussion. Emily hated that phrase, custody schedule, as if childhood were a calendar app and love could be color-coded by weekends. Ryan arrived 10 minutes later in a charcoal suit with a leather briefcase and an attorney named Mr. Bell, a narrow man with silver glasses who spoke softly enough to make every sentence sound expensive. Ryan looked at the twins first, then at Emily, then at the tote bag in her lap. His mouth tightened. "You did not have to make this bigger than it is," he murmured when he passed her bench. Emily looked straight ahead. "It got bigger when your children had 30 days to leave their home." He sat on the opposite side of the hallway and opened his phone. That was Ryan's gift, the ability to retreat into a glowing screen while other people carried the weather he created. Then Madison appeared. Emily saw her before Ryan did. She came through security in a pale gray coat, moving carefully because of the baby, her face quiet and set. She did not sit beside Ryan. She sat 2 rows behind Emily, hands folded over a manila folder. Ryan turned and stared at her. "Madison, what are you doing here?" She held his gaze. "Listening." One word. Clean as a closing door. When their case was called, the courtroom seemed too large for such intimate failures. The judge, a woman in her late 50s with steel gray hair and tired, intelligent eyes, reviewed the file while everyone settled. Emily sat with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles looked bloodless. Noah sat to her left, Lily to her right, both unusually still. Mr. Bell spoke first, carefully shaping Ryan into a responsible man under financial strain, a father attempting to balance 2 households, a victim of unfortunate timing and an unreasonable former spouse. Emily listened as if he were describing a stranger. 2 households. Balance. Unreasonable. Human beings had invented so many polished words for abandonment that it was almost impressive in the bleak little museum of civilization. Then the judge asked for records. Emily's legal aid attorney, Miss Harper, stood and submitted the payment history. Missed transfers, partial transfers, long gaps, then the eviction notice. Then Emily's pay stubs from the laundromat and the office cleaning company. The judge read silently. The room became very still. "Mr. Whitmore," she said at last, looking over her glasses, "according to these records, your support payments have been inconsistent for over a year." Ryan shifted. "Your Honor, I have had significant expenses related to my current household." The judge's expression did not change. "Your current household does not erase your existing children." Lily's hand slipped into Emily's. Ryan's face colored slightly. Mr. Bell began to speak, but the judge raised one hand. "I would like to hear from the teacher." Mrs. Alvarez stepped forward from the back row, her cardigan buttoned wrong in one place, her voice steady. She explained the assignment, the children's words, the concerns she had documented, the referrals she had offered for housing assistance. She did not embellish. She did not need to. Truth, when carried carefully, does not require decoration. Then Madison stood. Ryan turned sharply, but she did not look at him. She looked at the judge. "Your Honor, I reviewed our household accounts. The missed payments were not because funds were unavailable." The courtroom air changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for Ryan's confidence to lose its footing. Madison opened her folder. There were discretionary expenses during those same months. Travel deposits, furniture orders, restaurant charges, entertainment expenses. I was told Emily was refusing help. I do not believe that was true. Emily closed her eyes for half a second, not in triumph, but because being believed after so long felt almost painful. The judge turned to Ryan. "When was the last time you spent one full day with Noah and Lily?" Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, looked toward the twins, then away. "I have been busy," he said. The judge waited. Busy was not an answer, and everyone in the room knew it. Noah stared at his shoes. Lily leaned into Emily's side. The judge's voice softened, but only slightly. "Children know who shows up. The court does too." By the end of the hearing, the order was clear. Ryan would pay the overdue support through wage withholding. Temporary housing assistance would be expedited through the family services referral. Emily would retain primary custody, and Ryan's visitation would begin with structured, documented time focused on rebuilding trust rather than convenience. It was not fireworks. It was not revenge wrapped in diamonds. It was paperwork, signatures, dates, and accountability, which was less glamorous and far more useful. Outside the courtroom, Ryan stood alone with his briefcase hanging from one hand. Madison walked past him without speaking. Emily gathered the twins close, the plastic sleeve with Noah's essay and Lily's drawing tucked safely in her tote bag. For the first time in weeks, the notice in that bag no longer felt like an ending. It felt like evidence that someone had finally read the whole story. The first apartment Emily found after the hearing was not beautiful in the way magazines teach people to recognize beauty. It had beige carpet with one stubborn stain near the hallway, kitchen cabinets that did not close perfectly, and a bathroom mirror with a tiny crack in the lower left corner. The building stood on a quiet street near the edge of Kettering, 20 minutes from the laundromat by bus, close enough to the twins' school that Mrs. Alvarez said she could help with the district paperwork. But it had 2 bedrooms. 2. Emily stood in the doorway holding the keys the housing coordinator had placed in her palm, and for a moment she could not move. After years of measuring life in corners, folded blankets, plastic bins, and borrowed space, the sight of a short hallway felt almost extravagant. Noah stepped in first, cautious as if the apartment might disappear if he trusted it too quickly. Lily followed, carrying the yellow house drawing in both hands inside a folder Mrs. Donnelly had given her, the kind with glitter on the front and a unicorn sticker she insisted made documents more official. "Which room is ours?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily pointed to the door on the left. The twins walked to it together. Noah pushed it open, and sunlight spilled across the empty floor. The room was not large, but it had a window facing a maple tree and enough space for 2 small beds, 2 backpacks, and the cereal box city if Noah still wanted to rebuild it. Lily turned in a slow circle. "We can both fit," she said, as if this were a scientific discovery worthy of applause. Noah walked to the window and touched the sill. "Mom," he said, not looking back. "Where will you sleep?" Emily looked toward the second bedroom, the smaller one at the end of the hall, with walls painted a faded cream and a closet that could actually hold hangers. For some reason, that was what nearly undid her. Hangers. A place where clothes could rest without being folded into survival. "In there," she said. Noah turned then, and the relief on his face was so open it hurt. "You get a bed?" Emily laughed, but it came out uneven. "I get a bed." They moved in on a Saturday with help from Mrs. Donnelly, Denise from the laundromat, and Mrs. Alvarez, who arrived with a folding table, a box of donated dishes, and the calm efficiency of a teacher who had organized 22 years of field trips and therefore feared nothing human civilization could produce. The beds came from a church furniture bank. The couch had one soft arm and one suspicious spring, but Mrs. Donnelly declared it had character, which was what adults called things when replacing them cost money. Denise brought groceries: eggs, bread, apples, chicken, rice, milk, and a chocolate cake from the grocery store bakery with blue icing that said "Welcome Home" in letters slightly sliding toward the edge. Emily tried to protest. Denise gave her one look. "Do not insult cake by making it emotional," she said. So Emily stopped protesting. That evening, after everyone left, the apartment settled into a quiet that felt unfamiliar because it was not crowded with fear. Lily taped her yellow house drawing above the twins' beds, then added a new picture beside it. This one had 4 windows, a maple tree, and 3 people standing in front of a blue door. Noah placed his folded family appreciation paper on his desk, smoothing it carefully beneath a lamp Mrs. Alvarez had brought from her garage. Emily made grilled cheese sandwiches in a real skillet on a real stove, and the twins ate at the folding table as if it were a banquet table in a palace. Later, when she tucked them into their separate beds, Lily reached for her hand. "Is this our real home?" Emily sat between the beds, one hand in Lily's, the other resting on Noah's blanket. She thought of the old room, the heater, the chair by the window, the empty school seat, the courthouse, the paper trail of every hard thing they had survived. She thought of Ryan, who had started sending payments because the court now made neglect inconvenient. She thought of Madison, who had mailed a small envelope with grocery cards and a note that simply said, "I am sorry I believed him before I believed what I saw." Emily had cried over that note in the laundry room where nobody could hear. "This is our beginning," Emily said. Noah's eyes were already heavy, but he smiled. "A beginning with beds." "A beginning with beds," Emily agreed. Long after the twins fell asleep, she walked into her own room and sat on the edge of the mattress. No chair, no coat over her lap, no pretending, just a bed, a door that closed, and the soft hum of a refrigerator in a kitchen that belonged to them for now. She lay down slowly, as if rest were something she had to relearn. Outside, a car passed, then another. The maple branches moved against the window in the dark. Emily closed her eyes and understood, with a quietness deeper than victory, that Ryan had built a family for the world to admire. But she had built one that knew how to survive the dark and still save each other the last bite. 3 weeks after they moved into the Kettering apartment, Emily woke to a sound she had not heard in years, silence that did not frighten her. No radiator knocking like a warning. No neighbor's television pressing through thin walls. No parking lot argument below the window. Just the soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the kitchen clock Mrs. Donnelly had found at a yard sale, and the slow, even breathing of 2 children sleeping behind their own bedroom door. For a while, Emily lay still beneath a blanket that covered her whole body, amazed by the extravagance of not waking with 1 foot cold. Morning light slipped around the edges of the curtains in her room, pale gold and gentle, landing on a laundry basket that was not being used as a dresser anymore. Her clothes hung in the closet. Not many, not new, but hanging. It was such a small thing, and yet small things had become the language by which her life explained its recovery. A hook for her coat by the door. 3 toothbrushes in a cup beside the sink. 2 backpacks lined against the wall instead of stuffed under a bed. A carton of eggs in the refrigerator without the private terror of whether they had to last until next Friday. The first support payment had arrived through wage withholding the week before, not with apology, not with tenderness, but with the dull reliability of a system Ryan could no longer charm. Emily had stared at the deposit notification on her phone in the break room at the laundromat and felt no triumph, only exhaustion loosening by a single notch. Accountability was not romance. It was not closure. It was groceries, cough syrup, bus fare, and a pair of sneakers for Lily that did not pinch her toes. That Saturday, Ryan was scheduled for his first supervised afternoon with the twins at a family center near downtown. 2 hours in a bright room with board games, plastic chairs, and a counselor who would make notes he could not edit. Noah had been quiet all morning. Lily asked whether she had to hug him if she did not feel like it. Emily knelt in the hallway between them, tying Lily's new shoes, and answered carefully. You get to be polite. You do not have to pretend. Noah looked at her then. Will you be mad if we have fun? The question was so tender and so unfair that Emily had to look down at the laces for a moment. Children of broken homes often become tiny diplomats, negotiating peace treaties for wars they did not start. No, she said, lifting her eyes to his. Adults who pretended not to gossip while absolutely gossiping. That Madison had moved with Carter to her sister's house for a while. Emily did not celebrate that. Another woman's heartbreak was not a trophy. It was only another room somewhere that had gone quiet for the wrong reasons. Ryan's eyes moved from Noah to Lily, then to Emily. Thanks for bringing them, he said. It was the first sentence in years that did not sound like it was wearing a mask. Emily nodded. They deserve consistency. He flinched slightly, but he did not argue. The counselor opened the door, and the twins stepped inside. Lily stayed close to Noah at first. Ryan crouched to greet them, awkward, careful, no longer performing for a camera. Emily watched through the observation window for a few minutes as he opened a box of checkers, and Lily corrected him on the rules with the authority of a Supreme Court justice in glitter sneakers. Noah almost smiled. Almost. It was not forgiveness. It was not repair. It was a beginning so fragile a loud voice could bruise it. Emily stepped back from the window and sat in the hallway with her purse on her lap. For the first time, she understood that healing was not the same as making everyone into a family again. Sometimes healing was a locked door, a court order, a calendar, and the permission to stop begging someone to become decent. When the visit ended, the twins came out holding 2 small drawings they had made with Ryan. Lily showed a park. Noah showed 3 separate houses under the same sun. Emily looked at it, then at her son, and smiled. That is a good son, she said. Noah shrugged, but he held the paper carefully all the way home.